Hello everyone, welcome to Lab 9 of eDesign, which will cover material from Chapter 3 and 4 of your Autodesk Inventor textbook. We're going to start with Chapter 3 here, which will cover a couple of new techniques for adding geometry to parts. So in this case, we're going to create a new part. And for this one, we do want it to be metric, so change here to a metric part, standard millimeter. Click create, and we're going to start a new sketch. We'll put it on the XZ plane here. And you can see that for whatever reason, Inventor decided to rotate this the wrong direction. It's showing the word top from top to bottom instead of left to right, so I'm going to go over by the view cube here and click to rotate it the direction that I actually want it. You can see I do already have my grid lines showing here. If you don't have those showing, you can go to Tools and Application Options and click on Grid Lines here to get the grid lines to show up. Then I'm going to also change the document settings as it notes in the textbook for this one. Go to the sketch section and change your snap spacing to 5 millimeters, 5 millimeters, major every 5 minor lines. Click apply and you can see that change has been made, and then close. Now we are going to go back to our sketch area here. Last time we used lines and circles, we'll also use rectangles this time. So there are several ways that you can create a rectangle. There are options here. You can also create slots and other shapes besides rectangles, but we're going to go with the regular 2-point rectangle here. And I'm going to dimension as it's noted in the text. Make this one 75 millimeters and the height 50 millimeters. And it's still showing that 2 dimensions are needed. That is because right now it can still move left and right, and it can still move up and down. So we're going to rectify that by using the coincident constraint and matching the origin, which I will click here. You can see when it highlights red, you might not be able to see it in YouTube, but you should be able to see it on your screen. Click the origin, and then if you hover over this line, eventually the center point will show up green, and click that. Now those two are constrained together, coincident. You can see fully constrained down here. Another thing you can do while you're here is go to the inspect section of the ribbon here and measure. If you just click on one line, it'll show you the length of that line. If you click on the other line over here, it'll show you the distance between them. If you click back in the graphics area, it'll restart. You can click on this line, it'll show you its length. You can also, if you hover over the line, right click, select other, and if you click curve loop, it will show you the perimeter, the total length of all of those lines that come together there. Then if you hit escape, it'll get rid of the measure tool. If you go to the region properties, you can click this section here and click calculate. It'll show you the area, perimeter, and some other things about that region. Now our sketch is done. We'll click finish sketch. Zoom out, move this over here a bit. And we're going to extrude this. And just coming straight up from the plane is fine. I'm going to change the height to 15 millimeters. And then hit enter or click OK. And the next thing we're going to do is add another solid feature. So we'll have another 2D sketch, and as before, you can either use the planes that you have from the origin, or you can use surfaces of the part that you already have modeled. And we want to make the sketch on the bottom surface, which you can't see right now. If you shift and use your middle mouse button, you can rotate this around, or you can also use your left click on the view cube up here and drag it around to rotate with the view cube. So as long as you get it moved to where you can see the bottom, once you have clicked Start Sketch, you can make a sketch on that surface. And it shows you here on the view cube that we are facing the bottom. And we want to put a round feature over here. So we're going to use the circle. And if you right click anywhere in the graphics area, you can go to Point Snaps and click Midpoint. That'll allow you to select the midpoint of this line. Click that once, and then when you get to the edge, it should snap to that edge. And click that. When you hit Escape, it'll end the circle command, and you can see this is fully constrained because it used the geometry that we already had to locate it. So it's located at the center point and end points of that geometry. If you hit F6 or go up to the home button, it'll take you back into your home view. And we will select the sketch, go back to our, well, we forgot to finish the sketch, so we'll do that, finish sketch. Then we can select that sketch and extrude it. Now it's showing us the wrong direction. We want it to be creating a new part going upward. So we can change the direction over here. Go to direction 2. Now it has made it into a cut. We'll go back here and select join again. And we don't want it only 15 millimeters this time. We will change the value here to 40. Click OK or hit enter. And it joins those two parts. Now they are one solid body. We want to make a hole through the center of the top here. So we're going to show one way to do that is by sketching a circle. So we'll start 2D sketch on the top. We'll make a circle, and I want it in the middle here. It's snapped to it. And I can type in the value of 30 millimeters right now and hit enter, and it will automatically add that dimension. Or if I just click, now there's no dimension, but I can go up here to dimension and click the circle, and it will give me the option to put the diameter on there. We'll make that 30 millimeters. Now it's still showing 2 dimensions needed, because even though that snapped here, this circle is still capable of moving around. And we do not want that circle to be able to move up and down, left and right. So even if you had drawn the circle out here, you can use the concentric constraint to make it concentric with the circle of that feature that we already have. So we'll click concentric, we'll click this guy, and then this circle here, and it has now fully constrained because the location of this circle is based on the geometry that we already have. We'll click finish sketch, click on that sketch and hit extrude, choose the area that we want to make our hole out of, and it keeps giving us the opposite direction that we want, but we can always switch the direction. And now it has automatically changed it to a cut, which is good. And instead of the distance, let's make this go through all. That way if we ever change anything, the hole always still go all the way through. Then click OK or hit enter, and we can see we've got a hole through there. And if you hit F6, it'll bring you back to the home, or click up here for the home button. Another way to make a hole is shown here in the next part of the chapter. That is to just add a hole with the hole feature. If you click on hole, you can change your diameter of the hole here. So in this case we want a 20 millimeter hole, so we'll make that 20. And then the next thing you do is, where do you want it? We want it on this face on the top here, so we'll click that. And then the next thing you do is, as far as position, determining some reference points. So we'll use this edge. We want it to be 25 millimeters from that edge. And then we'll use this bottom edge here. And we want that to be 30 millimeters from that edge. Now we've got that hole where we want it. And the other options here are the termination. You can have it set to a distance, just like when we did a cut. You can have it up to a certain surface. Right now it is going through all, which is what we want. So we will click OK. And we've got another hole. The last feature that we want to make is a rectangular cut. And we're going to do that with a sketch again. So we'll start a sketch, and we'll use this end position here. And I'll show you how we can make a rectangle anywhere we want and put it into place where we want it to cut. So we'll make a rectangle, and we want the width of that rectangle to be 20 millimeters. And then we want the top of that rectangle to be along this line. We want the bottom to be along this line. We can use constraints. So if we hit the coincident constraint and choose the top corner here and make it coincident to this line. And actually I'm going to drag this back out to make it a rectangle again, because somehow it became not a rectangle. All I did was click on that line and kind of dragged it away from where it had overlapped. Then I'm going to click the coincident constraint again, click the bottom corner and the bottom here. Now it's the right height that we want. I can drag it over here. It's about where we want it. All we need to do is dimension from the left side to the left side here. And we want that distance to be 15 millimeters. Now it is fully constrained. We can finish our sketch. Click on the sketch, hit extrude. We want to select the area that we want to extrude. We could be extruding this section here, but we want this one. Now it's giving us a join option and making another part. We want it to be a cut. We'll change the direction. Since it's giving us a distance of 40 millimeters, it has cut right through that hole that we already made, which we don't want. So we'll change this from distance to the to next option. So it'll cut up to whatever the next feature is, and it's cut up to that hole, but hasn't destroyed the other side of the hole. Click OK. And we should be all set. You can save this wherever you like, as long as you remember where you saved it. And you can upload this model to Canvas. If you're going to do the printing option, we just need a PDF version. So to do that, go into View and change your visual style to wireframe with visible edges only. And then remove your shadows by clicking Shadows. You can unselect all shadows. This is ready for printing. You can go to File, Print, and change it to Print to PDF, and that'll make a PDF copy for you. I'm not going to save this because I don't really need to keep it for anything, but you will want to save it so that you can upload it to Canvas. At the end of this chapter, Canvas says exercise number 1 but they do want you to do the guide plate, which is exercise number 2. All your dimensions for this one are the inches, and something that might not be immediately apparent. This here, you can see by the cross through it, this is a hole. This inner circle is also a hole. The overall thickness of the plate is 1/4 inch, and then it says boss height 0.125 inches. That is the feature between your inner circle and outer circle here. So this circular area is going to be a feature that will be an extruded boss up a height of 1.25 off the top surface of this plate. So that is the other exercise that you've got from chapter 3. And I'll close this out, and we'll move on to chapter 4. Chapter 4 gives you a little more information about using the model tree. So I'll go over some of that with you as we walk through it. I'm going to make a new part, and this time we do want it to be in English. So we'll make a standard part and create a new sketch on the XY plane. And I'm going to draw out the shape first. Make sure when you're snapping that it shows you that you're getting your 90-degree differences between your sides here. I am not in any way worrying about the actual dimensions here, other than I do want this lined up with the top here. But other than that, I don't care about the dimensions because I'll add the dimensions in later. Clearly, this looks nothing like what's in the book, but I can add dimensions and it'll look like it eventually. So when I add this dimension, since I drew it smaller than the dimension is in the book, you can see it will immediately expand the size of my overall drawing. Now adding my other dimensions here. And then for this dimension that goes across the top, if you click the left line and then the right line, it'll let you dimension between those two. Now I have got all of the dimensions drawn here that it shows in the book, but it's still showing me down at the bottom 2 dimensions needed. Again, that's because this can move left and right, and it can also move up and down. I've shown you how I did that with the coincident constraint. You could make coincident and choose one of these corners and make it coincident to the origin. You can also do that with dimensions. I'm going to dimension this side to the origin and make that 0, and then the bottom to the origin and make that 0 as well. And that's the same thing as making it coincident, but that's just showing that you can do that via dimensions as well. Now this is fully constrained, ready to finish the sketch. And I'll hit F6, it'll bring us to the home view. Now we'll extrude this sketch. And instead of going one direction here, which would just come straight out of the plane, we want it to be symmetrical. So we'll use the symmetric version, and we're going to extrude this by 2.5 inches. So that'll be our overall width of the part. Hit OK. and we're going to add a second solid feature. So this is going to be very similar to what we did in chapter 3. We'll start a new 2D sketch. Again, we want it on the bottom surface, but we can't see it. Another option besides rotating it around is we can look at this top surface, right click and click select other, and that bottom face is shown. Yes, that's the face we want. And now we are drawing on that face. So we want to put our circle, our rounded feature over here. We'll click circle. Again, right click in the graphics area here and point snaps midpoint. We'll let you select the middle of this line and then select the outside of that line. Now you can see once you hit escape or right click and click OK to end your circle command, we are fully constrained because everything is again using the geometry that we already had as far as placement and size. Finish sketch. I'm going to select that sketch and extrude. It's going the wrong direction. Inventor is great at that. Change the direction. We don't want it cutting, we want it joining. And right now it is at a distance. Instead of a distance, let's make it go up to a certain surface. So right now it's 2, and we can choose how high we want it to go. We can make it go as high as this one, as high as here, but what we want right now is just to be the same height as the surface next to it. So we'll choose that face, and then click OK. And something you can do over here is rename your features so that you can remember what's what. Extrusion 1 and Extrusion 2 aren't very descriptive. They do show up when you hover over them. They will kind of highlight in the graphics area to show what they are, but you can also rename them. If you left click and then click again, you can see this has changed to allow you to rename. So we'll call this one base, and we'll do the same thing for this one. And this one we want to call circular end. So now those are renamed. This is especially useful if you have a very large part with a lot of features in it. That renaming can help you organize things and know where each part is. It's especially useful if you need to go back and make changes, which is the next thing we're going to do. This width of this base was dependent on the extrusion width. We can either double click on that base feature or right click and click edit feature, and that'll bring this up, and it tells you to change this to a width of 3 just so you can see what happens when you do. Notice that the circular part also changed its size because it was based on the size of your first base. We'll double click on this again and change this. Our final value that we actually want is going to be 2 inches. So now again this has shrunk because it changed its size along with the base. Now we want to add a placed feature. We're going to use a hole again, and instead of putting it on the top surface, we're going to right click here, select other, and put it on the bottom face. And right now, because last time we made a hole that was 20 millimeters, right now it's showing 20 inches. Let's change that diameter to 0.75 inches. Alright, it's on the correct surface, but right now it's kind of in the middle of nowhere. So as far as its position, if we click on this arc of the circle, it will automatically make it concentric to that circle, and that's the placement that we want. We do again want this to go through all, so this hole is ready to go. Click OK. We've got it where we want it, and it is cut right through. And the last thing, again, we'll do a rectangular cut feature similar to what we did last time. Let's start a new sketch. We'll put it on this surface, We want a rectangle and just arbitrarily sized. It has already snapped the top to be coincident with the top surface here, which is nice. So all we need are the dimensions. We want the height of this rectangle to be 0.75, and we want its distance from here to here to be 1/2 inch, and its width to be 1 inch. Now that rectangle is fully constrained. If we click Finish Sketch, we're good to go. Click on that sketch we made, extrude it, select the area that we want, change its direction so that it's a hole, and first thing that the text asks us to do is go to Next, and if we click OK, it has cut a hole through here up to the next feature where it's not going to cut through this. At this point they do ask you to take a screen capture, which you can do by using the print screen. I really don't need to see the screen captures. Honestly, if you followed through as you should be doing with the book, then you will have done this part. It's not critically important for me to see your screen captures. But now we are going to edit this extrusion, so we can double click here, and instead of to Next, we're going to change this to Through All. Now that is cut through everything the way we want it to be. We're also going to make a change to our design. We want a fillet here between these two surfaces. There are a couple different ways to do fillets. One easy way is in the 3D area here, in the 3D model section, we can put a fillet here. We'll change the radius to 0.25, and right now it's saying select mode, edge. Where do we want it? We want it along this edge. So if we click that edge, it's automatically putting that fillet in there. I'm going to hit cancel instead of keeping this and show you the way the book is going to have you do it. Just go to the base part, and we're going to edit our first sketch. So you can right click on that and edit sketch. There is a fillet option up here for sketching. Do the same thing, we'll change the radius to 1/4 inch. And then we'll select the sides that we want to fillet between. So we'll click this vertical and this horizontal, and it's added that fillet. Because it's based on all of the other geometry that was fully constrained, everything is still fully constrained. Now when we click Finish Sketch, it will automatically update your part for you. Finally, we are going to assign some physical properties to this piece. So we want this to be given a material type of aluminum. If we right click on the part, click Eye Properties, and go over to Physical. Under Material, it'll always start as generic, and you can change that. Scroll up to find aluminum 6061. Hit Apply, and now you can see here it'll give you principal and global and center of gravity information. It'll give you the mass of the part area. This is the surface area overall of the part, and the volume of the part. Surface area and volume don't change based on the material, but your mass will, because it has a density based on the material. Click OK. And now again you're ready There's, I think at the end they ask you to change the material to cast iron, so we'll do that. Right click on the part, properties, iron, comma, cast, apply, close. Along with changing the mass properties, it also will change the visual properties for your parts. So the final material should be cast iron. This is ready to save and turn in on canvas. And again, you're going to want to create a PDF version. So view, visual style, wireframe, and turn the shadows off. You're ready to print that. And finally, you will have one more part to create from chapter 4, and that is the tube mount seen here. If you have the physical text or the online text, you shouldn't have a problem. If you're trying to read this from the version that's on Canvas, this dimension specifically is pretty tough to see. That should be 2.50. Other than that, I think you should be able to read all of the other dimensions. And so you should be good to go. So both walkthrough parts and both end of chapter parts will be due next week. If you have any questions, please let me know. Otherwise, have a good week.